All right, folks, once again, I am Tom Downey. As promised, it is time for our Cowboys fan-led mock draft. Now, here's how this is going to go. A couple different rules and kind of guidelines to follow here. Number one, you guys make all the picks. All right, you guys are going to vote with the number that matches the player, what we'll get to here in a little bit. Vote in the comments. Just type in the number. Use the number, not the name. It's a lot easier for our computer algorithm to actually track it that way. We're only going to have players who are on the board in this simulation. I'll mention some guys that went off the board, but we're not going to have first-round players available in round 4. That just isn't realistic at all for the Cowboys. So remember, vote in the comments, use that number, and the most votes equals the player that you guys picked. So you can't blame me for going a different direction. This is all on you guys in the end. So remember, Cowboys have to wait all the way to pick number 58. Here are the most notable players on the board for you guys to select. If you want Deebo Samuel, type in 1. By the way, I see some comments about FanSpeak. We've got a much more realistic simulator for you guys. You're welcome. Number 2 is Juan Thornhill. Number 3 is Darnell Savage. 4 is Charles Omenihu. Number 5 is Jace Sternberger. Number 6 is Christian Miller. Number 7 is Justin Lane. And number 8 is Paris Campbell. So those are your 8 options here. We'll leave these up and we'll scroll through them here for a couple of minutes. Vote with which one you want. So type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep using those there. Now, I'll break down briefly each player and then how they fit once you guys make your pick, whoever that is. Deebo Samuel, I'm a big fan. I'm a little surprised he's there, but he might not fill the biggest need for the Cowboys. 2 safeties, top 2 left on the board here, because I'll make note here. Taylor Rapp went off the board. Jonathan Abram went off the board. 4 picks for the Cowboys did, so sorry those. Rapp went off the board at 53. Nasir Adderley went off the board at number 49. So late run on safeties, still 2 there, though. You have Jace Sternberger there. Now, I think Thornhill, in particular, fits a little bit better with what the Cowboys look for. A little bit longer, a little bit faster in terms of overall athleticism, in terms of jumps and all that kind of stuff there. But I think that makes some sense for the Cowboys. Now, Christian Miller, a very different type of player. He could be a Sam on first and second down, and then a pure pass rusher after that. Darnell Savage, I like him quite a bit. I did want to include Charles Omenihu, by the way. I know he's a Texas guy, and no surprise there are many Texas fans here, so I totally understand that front there. In particular, and I'll let you guys know what I would prefer to do here. A lot of good players here. Sternberger, I like. Justin Lane fits the Chris Richard mold. Paris Campbell's a fun, speedy receiver, brings you more speed than you have on the roster right now. But I've done a lot of these mock drafts, a lot of these simulations here. Safety is the way to go. If you get a safety in round 2, it sets yourself up better long term because safeties tend to go off the board there a little bit quickly. So I'm told the pick has been in here, by the way. Here it is, number 58 overall, based on you guys, the voters, have selected Juan Thornhill at number 58 overall. I think this is a really good pick. And this is exactly what the Cowboys, should do if this is the way the board breaks, and what they could do as well. Now, Thornhill is an interesting prospect to evaluate, because he played this like safety, linebacker, nickel corner type hybrid position, but he's a really good athlete. He tested more like Byron Jones, but the way he was used at Virginia was a little bit more like Eric Berry. Now, I don't know if he's quite as quick and sudden in the short area of the field as other players are for the Cowboys there, or at safety. But for Thornhill, I think this is a really good pick for the Cowboys. Now we'll get to round 3 here, and I'll mention some of the names here. Verbalists are behind the scenes guys and get them set up for you. I'll make a couple names about to me right away. EMANUEL Hall, the wide receiver from Missouri. He's still on the board. Cowboys brought him in. Tight end Dawson Knox, also available on the board right now. I'll make note of a running back who I think is better than Damon Harris, and that's Darrell Henderson. So those are your first 3 names. EMANUEL Hall, the receiver out of Missouri. Dawson Knox, tight end out of Ole Miss. Darrell Henderson, the running back out of Memphis. Now those, of course, are all offensive players. So let's look here at who are the defensive guys left on the board. Here's one for you. How about edge rusher Anthony Nelson, a guy the Cowboys I think are pretty darn high on. I think he makes some sense there. And we'll go with an interior defensive lineman as well. How about GERALD WILLIS out of Miami, Florida, the defensive tackle. So I'll recap those names here again, and we'll get it all set up for you guys on screen. Just be patient with us. There's a lot to go on here. Defensive tackle GERALD WILLIS out of Miami. Edge rusher Anthony Nelson out of Iowa. And then on the offensive side of the ball, EMANUEL Hall out of Missouri, a receiver. Dawson Knox, a tight end out of Ole Miss. and Darrell Henderson, the running back out of Memphis. So some guys that when I've done these simulations haven't always been there. I'm very surprised to see Hall last this far. I'm a little surprised to see Darrell Henderson last this far. So a lot of intriguing names here for the Cowboys to go through and discuss. Now, I would have loved a better edge rusher. There's not really one there, unfortunately. So, in particular here, Emmanuel Hall. So, again, here's the votes. If you want Emmanuel Hall, type in number 9. We'll get his name. There's actually only one M in his name, by the way. 10 equals Dawson Knox. 11 equals Darrell Henderson. 12 equals Anthony Nelson. And 13 equals GERALD WILLIS. Now, I'll make note of some players who went off the board in recent selections. Andy Isabella goes off the board, pick number 85. That's frustrating for me. Isaiah Johnson goes off the board at pick number 83, and Rennell Wren goes number 81. Zach Allen goes number 78. So off the board for the Cowboys pick here at number 90. In terms of what they bring potentially for the Cowboys here, again, keep voting, guys, in the comment section. Use those numbers. Emmanuel Hall is a speedy deep threat. Dawson Knox did not get many receptions at Ole Miss. He's all projection, but as a developmental tight end, he makes some sense. There's a lot of good athleticism there. No, by the way, he's a pretty decent blocker as well. Darrell Henderson, I think it's maybe a bit early for a back, but he's really good. Very productive player. He'd be a fantastic secondary player to Zeke Elliott, but do you want to spend a third-round pick when you can get somebody still pretty good later on in round 4? Number 12, Anthony Nelson can kind of play that Tyrone Crawford role. Really big, really good athlete in terms of tall. He's 6'7", and measured really well at the NFL Combine. GERALD WILLIS, meanwhile, brings you that 3 technique. A lot of splash plays for him on film. Now, there's some ups and downs in his game, but if you watch the LSU-Miami game, I thought Willis was the best player on the field in that game. That's how impressive I thought he was in terms of his upside in those flashes. All right, pick is in. We're going defense again. GERALD WILLIS. He goes number 90 to the Dallas Cowboys here. In terms of the role he fits for the Cowboys, this is in theory your long-term 3 technique. That's the role he's going to play for you. Now, I know he only had 4 sacks. Remember, most defensive tackles don't end up getting like 8 or 9. Most of them have a handful, but a lot of tackles for loss. In terms of what Willis can bring for you right away, he's going to be a rotational defensive lineman. But Malik Collins' contract is up after this year. Tyrone Crawford, I don't know how long he's going to be there for. So he's a little bit boom or bust on a play-to-play basis, but you bring him in with Rod Marinelli as your long-term 3 technique to replace Malik Collins. I think that's a really good idea there. Now, there are a couple different DTs that could make some sense, but from an upside-wise, despite Willis' age and some maturity issues early in his NFL career, he makes quite a bit of sense there for the Dallas Cowboys. I like that pick. Good job, guys, at number 90. All right, let's mention some other names here. I'm going to mention 2 backs because they are the top 2 on the board right now. Damon Harris is still there. All the way pick 128. The Cowboys like him, the running back out of Alabama. Because I know you guys, I'll make note of another running back as well. That's Justice Hill out of Oklahoma State. So there are 2 offensive players for you. Cowboys have not addressed their receiver issues, but aren't a lot of great values there, so we're going to hold off on that at least for now. We'll look at the edge rusher spot, and not great again. A big drop-off there, so we're going to ignore edge. I'll make note here of Michael Jackson, the cornerback out of Miami, Florida. Big, fairly long, typically fits the Cowboys' MO there at cornerback. Let's add Josh Oliver, the tight end out of San Jose State. Don't know if everyone is super familiar with him, but he does make some sense there for the Cowboys. And I actually am going to make note of one more receiver. Board hasn't fallen the way I wanted at cornerback and edge, so we're going to ignore those spots. I'm sorry, guys. Let's make note of a player I know the Cowboys like. That's Stanley Morgan Jr. out of Nebraska. So a couple different options here for the Cowboys. I'm glad he took care of the safety need. I'm glad he found the defensive tackle because the Cowboys are a little bit thin right now at edge. There's the top guy left on the board, just for reference. We're not going to mention him in terms of on-screen graphics. That's Jalen Jelks, who's like a round 6 player. So big drop-off there at edge. Probably going to have to wait all the way to round 7 to find some good value on that perspective. So, couple different running backs on the board. I'm very curious here if you guys get your way with Justice Hill. So if you want Damon Harris, put 14 in the chat. If you want Justice Hill, put 15 in the chat. If you want Michael Jackson, put 16. If you want Josh Oliver, put 17. And if you want Stanley Morgan Jr., put 18. So 5 different options up there for the Dallas Cowboys. Again, keep those chats going. I see as I look right now, I see a lot of back numbers. I see a lot of 14, a lot of 15. Good thing we got the math guys behind the scenes because very similar numbers there. Might come down all the way to the wire on that front. So I'll focus then, based on these poll results here, on Damien Harris and Justice Hill. Damien Harris has been the lead back for Alabama. I actually don't think he's as good as Josh Jacobs, but he is going to be what he was at Alabama, what he is in the NFL. I've got a round 3 to 4 grade on him, so good value here for the Cowboys if that's the route they go with Harris. Now, I don't really trust him as a dynamic pass catcher, but if you give him the ball 10 to 15 times a game, he's going to look exactly like he did in the NFL. Now, his comps measured kind of like Kareem Hunt. I don't think the upside is that high. Downside might be like a Kenneth Dixon, who was with the Ravens and battled a lot of injuries. Damien Harris is a high floor, lower ceiling type of guy. I think he's going to be best as a 1A, 1B in a committee type role. Now, Justice Hill, meanwhile, is a little bit different as a prospect. He is much more, I don't know, it's a souped up Lance Dunbar type there. Really good speed. He's a slasher. Ran a 4.4 flat at the NFL Combine. Had 3 years of good production. He's a really good athlete, a little bit undersized, 5'10", 198, but he does bring you that speed. But pick is in here. The Cowboys pick number 128. They've gone Damien Harris. I don't know if the board's actually going to fall this way, but if Damien Harris is there at number 128, you guys should be very, very happy. That is fantastic value, and this also shows why you don't need to go running back so early. Damien Harris might be there. Justice Hill might be there. David Montgomery might be there. There are going to be a lot of quality running backs. So if the Cowboys can find their way into Harris, even at pick 90, which I don't love, but that's maybe more realistic, that's a good pick there for the Dallas Cowboys. So from their perspective, to find a running back of that caliber, I think makes a ton of sense for the Cowboys. So good pick there at number 128. So now we go to pick number 136. Now, similar names. However, one player already off the board that we had that is not a running back. So we won't do Justice Hill. So we'll stick with Stanley Morgan. All right. We have to get rid of Josh Oliver. He's off the board. So I'll add the next best tight end. How about Foster Moreau out of LSU? Tight end, big, lanky guy out of LSU. Still need some receiver help, so we'll leave Stanley Morgan up there. So Stanley Morgan. We'll add Foster Moreau, the tight end, as well. We'll look some more at the interior, or at the edge rusher spot. Again, there's no one I really like at that point. Michael Jackson, the cornerback out of Miami, Florida, still on the board there for the Cowboys, so that'll be our third option. Let's look at linebacker. I'll throw out this name. How about Tevin Coney? Linebacker Notre Dame, I think, would be a better fit as the Sam linebacker, more so than like a David Long, who's also there. So Tevin Coney will be our fourth pick there. And then I'll just mention one offensive lineman. Chuma Edoga, the offensive tackle out of USC. This is about the right range for him. Could be a swing tackle, maybe becomes a long-term player for you. So some different options here on the board after several notable players that we had last time already went. Josh Oliver goes one pick before the Cowboys, by the way, so cross off that tight end option. So we've got the linebacker from Notre Dame, Tevin Coney, and then the offensive tackle from USC, Chuma Edoga. So a couple different options there in the end for the Cowboys. Stanley Morgan's still there, who I know the Cowboys are high on. Foster Moreau also makes some sense there. Michael Jackson, I'll make note of him because he fits the mold a little bit of a Chris Richard type corner, but I don't know if I love that value. So again, here are the 5 guys we've got for you. Stanley Morgan, Foster Moreau, Michael Jackson, Tevin Coney, and Chuma Edoga. 19 if you want the receiver from Nebraska, that's Stanley Morgan. 20 if you want Foster Moreau. 21 if you want Michael Jackson. 22 if you want Tevin Coney out of Notre Dame. And 23 if you want Chuma Edoga, the OT out of USC. Now, you guys all went running back last time around. So I'm very curious to see where you guys go this time. I think I see a little bit more difference and change in terms of what you guys are targeting. If it's me, I don't know if Morgan's going to last to round 5. I think he can be a good slot receiver for you long term. But remember what you're looking for in round 4. Typically, you're not going to find a day 1 starter. Very rarely will you actually pull that off. So do you want a developmental guy like a Foster Moreau or a Chuma Edoga? Do you want maybe a year 2 starter in Stanley Morgan or Michael Jackson? Or maybe you do find more of a special teams backup type guy in Tevin Coney, the linebacker at Notre Dame. So a lot of different options here for the Dallas Cowboys. Tavon Coney, his name right, it's Tavon Coney. Producers Brett and Mitchell here are adding up all the numbers with our algorithm. I can tell they don't have a great number. It's very close right now, so might have to go with the runoff vote here. So keep those votes flowing here. A lot of different numbers coming in overall for the Cowboys, and all kinds of numbers as well. So keep those votes flowing. Stanley Morgan for 19, Foster Moreau for 20, Michael Jackson for 21, Tavon Coney for 22, Chuma Edoga for number 23. So all kinds of routes here for the Cowboys. And it didn't quite turn out where you've had to kind of wait on the edge, which I'm kind of surprised by in terms of how things have gone with this simulation. But this does tend to happen. So again, Stanley Morgan 19, Foster Moreau 20, Michael Jackson 21, Tavon Coney 22, and Chuma Edoga 23. But go ahead and stop voting. Our pick is in. Number 136, Foster Moreau out of LSU. I like this idea. Now, he's got good size, 6'4" and some change, 253. Wasn't super involved in the LSU offense. Only has 52 career catches, but he's a very good athlete, can block, has the length to hold up there, and shows some good ball skills. Now, he is very much, I think, a bit more of a developmental type player. I think the upside is super intriguing for him. I also don't know if he's going to come in right away and be good enough to be anything more than, your tight end 3. So for the Cowboys, you guys aren't going to like it very much, but for the Cowboys, this means Rico's done. That's what this means. And I think if Foster Moreau's there in round 4, I think it makes some sense. If you're looking for a comp in terms of players, how about Ian Thomas? You guys remember him last year out of Indiana? That's the type of player I think the Cowboys could end up getting here if they went with Foster Moreau in round 4. Some more measurement stuff. 6'4", 253, ran a 4.66. That's pretty darn fast. Now, Foster Moreau goes off the board here at pick number 136. You'll have to wait a little bit here because the Cowboys do not have a round 5 pick. Have to wait all the way, or round 5, no, round 6. Botched that totally. So let's take a look here at who is on the board. Shut up, producer Brett. Who is on the board, pick number 165. All right, let's see. Let's start with the receivers. Still looking for one of those, I think. All right, let's do Gary Jennings Jr. out of West Virginia. And because I know you people, Jalen Hurd out of Baylor. Don't already me, Brett. Yeah, this is about the right range, I think, for Hurd. So there are your 2 receivers. Now, you took care of receiver. I'll look at edge. They're all terrible. That's not great. I'll look at linebacker again here. Okay. I'll throw out Trey Watson of Maryland. A little under-the-radar type of guy there. So Trey Watson, we only have our 2 receivers. Okay. How about a player the Cowboys brought in for a pre-draft visit? Derek Thomas out of Baylor. So I'll recap those 4 again. Derek Thomas, cornerback out of Baylor. You have your linebacker, Trey Watson out of Maryland. You have your receiver, Gary Jennings Jr. out of West Virginia. Receiver, Jalen Hurd out of Baylor. And then let's look for one more option here for you guys. Got receivers, running backs everywhere. Took care of safety. Do we have any offensive linemen available that are decent? Okay. Ali Udoh, offensive tackle out of Elon. Oliudoh. I spell that for producer Brett and producer Mitch so that they can get that on screen for you guys there. So, couple different options here. Very different than what we've seen in the past. Oh, we even have an Elon graphic. Look at that. All right, 24 equals Gary Jennings. 25 equals Jalen Hurd. 26 equals Trey Watson. 27 equals Derek Thomas. Producer Brett, it's actually Derrek for Thomas. He spells it wrong, I know. And then Ali Udoh out of Elon, who is a raw developmental type at the offensive lineman spot. So, couple different routes to go here. I'll make note here. You guys might be heartbroken here. I know I am as I look at this right now. Taven Coney went 164. One pick, he would have been perfect for the Cowboys there in round 5. Austin Bryant, who I was considering for this pick, 163 off the board there. Michael Jackson goes 158. Stanley Morgan goes 155. So, unfortunate break there. A couple of the guys that I really liked right off the board before the Cowboys pick there. Welcome to the NFL draft. That's what happens for you guys. And think I've got a good feel as to who this pick is going to be watching you guys flow in here live on YouTube. Can't say I'm surprised. I guess sometimes I do know the audience a little bit there for the Cowboys. But again, keep those votes flowing here as to who you guys want for the Cowboys at pick number 165. All right, I think we've seen enough of the results. Pick is in. Jalen Hurd out of Baylor. I mean, I'm not that surprised. Like, I know you guys, and for a round 5 pick, I think it's a pretty good one. Now, you guys, I'm sure, know by now the story of Jalen Hurd. Was at Tennessee for a while, then left and made his way to Baylor to play receiver, and he was a big slot for them and did a pretty good job. So I am very intrigued by what he can do, maybe not necessarily in year 1, but maybe in year 2, maybe in year 3. He is going to be a big slot receiver for you. He still needs some work in terms of being a route runner, but for a 6'4", 226 big slot guy, his speed's pretty solid. So I like the idea of taking a bit of a flyer here in round 5, getting yourself a developmental receiver to play almost a receiver tight end hybrid role. I mean, you just got some size now on your roster in Foster Moreau and Jalen Hurd. 2 pretty big players there I think would fill a good role there for the Dallas Cowboys. All right. Let's move then to round 7. So we had no round 6, so a lot of different options available on the board here for you guys. I'll mention one, because we might double dip at this point in the draft. Bryce Love of Stanford is there in round 7, coming off that torn ACL. Ali Udoh, the offensive lineman from Elon, also still there. I'm kind of surprised by that one, but he is still on the board for the Dallas Cowboys. We have not filled the edge rusher spot. Yeah, not great. Derek Roberson out of Sam Houston State, former Texas transfer. He's our 3rd option. I'll go look at cornerback. Okay. How about Savion Smith out of Alabama? That's another option there. And one more. God, okay. We'll go one more running back, because I know the Cowboys brought him in. Tony Pollard out of Memphis, so he is there. So you got Bryce Love, the running back from Stanford. Ali Udoh, the offensive lineman out of Elon. Derek Roberson, the edge rusher out of Sam Houston State. Savion Smith out of Alabama. And then he's a cornerback, by the way, fits the Chris Richard mold. And Tony Pollard, the running back out of Memphis. Now remember, it's round 7. You're just taking a flyer. And at this point, with 241 out of the 254 picks, you're basically taking your favorite undrafted free agent. So 29 equals Bryce Love. 30 equals Ali Udoh. 31 equals Derek Roberson. Savion Smith is 32, the cornerback out of Alabama. And 33 equals Tony Pollard from Memphis. So keep those votes flowing there. Let me know who you guys think. Bryce Love, Pollard, both more of those speedy running backs. Now, I got some concerns about Bryce Love in the passing game because he wasn't used all that well, but he makes some sense. If you want a raw developmental offensive lineman, I'd actually be kind of surprised if Udoh fell all the way to round 7. Now, the way this simulation worked out, there actually weren't very many good edge rushers when the Cowboys were picking. They all went off the board early. So, Roberson, I don't know if he was really draftable, but he was the best guy left. Savion Smith was pretty up and down this year at Alabama, but does fit the length and speed and the size requirements that Chris Richard tends to have at his cornerback spot. And then 33, Tony Pollard. Now, I know running back's already been filled, but if the Cowboys want to find a Lance Dunbar 2.0, even after drafting a Damon Harris, you can double dip at back. You can have Tony Pollard and Darius Jackson fight for that 3rd spot. Winner gets it. You can have Bryce Love fight with Darius Jackson for that 3rd spot. Love, of course, coming off the torn ACL at the end of his season. So a lot of different options to go with here. Again, get your votes in the comments section. I see a lot of 29s, a lot of 32s as well. So interesting to see how that's kind of gone down there so far. A lot of 30s as well. So all different types of options right now here for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, again, it's round 7. You're just taking a flyer here. That's all you're really trying to do, is find someone that can be a developmental type guy for you, maybe make the roster. So pick is in here, number 241, Oli Odo. Oh, I said it wrong the entire time. My bad, guys. It's Oli Odo. So I botched that from the beginning. My fault. Not great. Either way, good size lineman out of Elon, still very, very raw. Player comp, Bryce, here. How about this? Just player comp. Think of him as like a super raw Trent Brown. That's what he could kind of end up being at the NFL level. So I like this pick because it gives you some options there. It gives you a guy that maybe you stash on the practice squad for a year. Maybe after a year, he can become your right tackle. I think he is a day 3 selection there. A little bit older than ideally I think you'd like, because he did redshirt his first year and played 5 years at Elon. But this is a good idea for the Cowboys. If he's there around 7, that's the type of developmental tackle that maybe he works out, maybe he doesn't. Either way, it's worth the risk here in round 7. I think a very quality pick there by the Cowboys. And especially in round 7. Now, typically, as I see Lawrence mentioned that Will McClay's taking a guy from Elon, the Cowboys historically, under Will McClay, you're right, have not taken small school players. At least not early. But in round 7, things are a little bit different there for the Dallas Cowboys as far as I'm concerned. So let's recap then. And by the way, we'll do some mailbags. So use hashtag Cowboys if you want to be featured on the show. The fan-led Cowboys mock draft. Here's how you guys chose to pick. Juan Thornhill, number 58 overall out of Virginia. GERALD Willis, number 90 out of Miami. Damon Harris, don't know how I was there, great pick out of Alabama at number 128. Then Foster Moreau at number 136. Jalen Hurd, your guys' favorite prospect, at number 165, which I think is good value for you. And then Oli Udoh, number 241 out of Elon, a raw developmental type, potential right tackle. Does kind of break trend a little bit there in terms of going smaller school, but I think it's a good idea there for the Cowboys to maybe find someone who can potentially replace La'el Collins if he does leave after this season. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.